Hi, everybody. My name is Mia, and I am the founder of the Color Music Collective. We are all super excited for this panel tonight, and we have such an incredible lineup of some really impressive women. This week's panel is called Women in Law, Breaking Down the 360 Deal, and it's sponsored by DistroKid and in partner with Girls Behind the Rock Show. So we're going to begin briefly with some introductions, and then jump into a handful of discussion questions. And then towards the end, we're going to have a Q&A session. So with that, we're going to jump right into introductions. I think it would be great if everyone could go around and please share their name, pronouns, and some of your clients. And we'll kick it off with Marjorie.
Hi, I'm Marjorie Garcia. I'm a partner at King Holmes, Paterno, and Soriano. I've been an attorney now, I guess, for 16, 17 years, something like that. Worked mainly in the Latino music space. So I have a large range of clients, from very established clients to artists who are developing now. And I grew up here in Los Angeles. My pronouns are she and her. And I'm very, very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me, because I think organizations like these are so important for lifting up people of color. So thank you, thank you. And I'm here to answer all the questions.
Thank you, Marjorie. And how about you, Dina?
Hi, I'm Dina Lapolt, and I'm originally from New York. I live in Los Angeles. I'm the owner and founder of Lapolt Law. We are a talent-based boutique entertainment firm in West Hollywood. Our clients run the gamut from, like Marjorie, superstars to people that are new and developing. We have a lot of influencers also in fashion and beauty, and we represent executives in the music business, anybody adverse to the company. We don't represent managers. We don't represent our record companies or publishing companies or anything like that. I'm also involved in the legislative space, specifically advocating for the rights of music creators. I co-founded a songwriter advocacy group in 2015 called Songwriters in North America, or SONA. It's now the second largest songwriter advocacy group in America. And because of those relationships that I have in Washington, because music largely is governed by federal law, the Copyright Act and the Lanham Act as it pertains to trademarks, I have a lot of relationships in Washington, so I tend to get very involved in social justice issues as well.
Thank you, Dina. And last but not least, Jill.
Hi, I'm Jill Berliner. My law firm is called Rimon Law. We are an international virtual firm, very interesting new alternative structure law firm. I've been practicing in the music space since 1985. I could be Marjorie's mom. I wish I were. And I'm super proud of everything Marjorie's accomplished. She and I go back a long time. I'm also totally amazed and impressed by Dina, who is everything that any musician should want in terms of an advocate, but also on that bigger level of all the political stuff she's been doing. She is incredibly energetic and completely committed to the rights of artists, and I really admire her for that. My client base is primarily working musicians, writers, and producers. Like Dina, I don't represent any companies anymore, although that's what I first did when I first started out. I shifted away from that, and these days it seems like I'm doing an awful lot of managing litigation, which really isn't fun, but it just seems to be what's going on in my life right now. I'm a she and a her type of pronoun.
Thank you, everybody. All right, so we're just going to jump right into the discussion questions. Our first one is, it would be really great if you could all, or just cue in as you wish, could break down to the audience what a 360 deal is for those who are not familiar.
How about if I introduce it and the other two can maybe talk about what they're like now, because I haven't really had to run into one in a while. But basically, you have several different types of agreements in the music business. You have a record contract, which is where your record company arguably is paying for you to record music, and they own the recordings, or at least license the recordings. And then there's a publishing agreement, which applies to songwriting, where if you're a songwriter and a recording artist, your record company is also going to be owning the songs you write, or at least participating in the earnings from the songs you're writing. And then sometimes they go so far as to also participate in touring and merchandising. So it's a really classic 360 deal. Your record company is dipping into every pocket of your ability to make a living as a recording artist. So it's records, songwriting, performing, and merchandising that they would participate in.
So what Jill said, basically, if you take a record deal, to expand on what she said, usually record deals are for records. There's two main elements of a record deal: exclusivity, and they own your master recordings, usually. Although there's a big swing to where artists are now starting to do deals where they own the master recordings, which is great. But traditionally, those are the two main elements of a record deal, and everything in between is a bunch of gobbledygook bullshit trying to carve away, your rights. But anyway, within the record deal, you have these rights that the record company is also trying to participate in. So they could be active or passive. So like Jill said, they try to get a piece of your songwriting, they try to get a piece of your merch, they try to get a piece of your sponsorships and endorsements, they try to get a piece of your touring. You can fight against that. And if you can't get rid of them altogether, you should absolutely 100% make them passive rights. Which means that if the record company has active rights, that means they control the rights and they furnish your services like recordings. You don't want them to control your rights for music publishing. You do not want them to control your rights for merchandising or touring. You don't want that. So if you absolutely have to give these companies a piece of the income and you can't get rid of it, make sure the artist controls the rights, gets the money, and then has to pay the record company their share.
Right. And I think also on the passive side, a lot of the times, the percentages are such a large range, and the arguments that the labels give us are that, oh, I'm going to spend all this money on marketing, and so I'm going to make you this big star, and I'm going to make it so you are able to go on tour and you are able to sell merch. I'm going to, increase the value of your brand, and so on and so on. But there's no current measurement of why you're asking for 20, 30% of this type of income before it's even made. Not only that, but there's no caps, so that, the marketing could be whatever it is, and you could turn around and have a massive hit and have to turn around and give them much more than what they've invested into your marketing. So that's your promotions, your publicity, advertisements, all of those things. So there's things that you should be wary of, you should be careful of, and you also have to take into consideration that there's other people that participate from your income. So it's not just your label. So if you're giving your label 20%, remember, you still have to give your manager somewhere between 15 and 20%. You got to give your agent 10%. You got to give Joe Schmo, who you had to pay this much money to make go away because he signed you to that really bad deal, you got to give him 5% on something. So you do have to be wary of how much you're actually giving up as a whole to everybody that participates in your income as well.
To add on what Marjorie's saying, I know Marjorie and Dina have both seen this, but what I've seen, what's really upsetting on these 360 deals, is where the act, let's just say they signed a 5, 6, 7 album deal. And in the process of getting to album 4 or 5, let's say, they're now touring very profitably. The reality is, unfortunately, these days, record royalties and songwriting don't generate a lot of money. This is part of what Dina's been working so hard to change. Touring, though, that's where most of the money is made. And if you're having to pay your record company for a percentage of your touring earnings, there are a whole slew of problems that come along with that, one of which could be that percentage may not take into consideration what Marjorie was just referring to, which is all the expenses that are connected to touring. So it's not just your agent and your manager's commission. It's your opening band. It's your sound and lights. It's getting your equipment to the venue. There are a lot of expenses involved in touring, and frequently those 360 deals are not worded in such a way that the percentage is of the net earnings. It may be based on something different. What can wind up happening is that the touring monies that you're paying to your record company are far, far greater than any amount that the record company ever paid, even if you take into consideration the advances, the recording costs, everything else that you've way recouped and then are now paying to be in this relationship that's not very profitable with your record company.
I'm of the mind frame that they should get none of these income streams, and so do these other ladies on this call as well. No, we don't want to give them anything. And I got to tell you something, now is a good time for artists because record companies are making enormous sums of money with streaming, okay? So before, when Napster ate our lunch, and instead of getting on the Napster bus and try to work with Napster, the label spent 5 years spending millions of dollars fighting Napster, and it was a losing battle and everybody lost. But what happened is because they stopped making money on CDs and albums, and we couldn't really figure out how to monetize streaming, they weren't making money. So in 2005, they started taking these other rights in your record deal, and it was really hard to get them out of your record deal. Now, if you have some leverage as an artist, which some artists have some good leverage, thank God, because of TikTok and Instagram and Triller and these places that allow artists to develop themselves without the record company's money, and they get a lot of followers. Now they have leverage. So when your artist has leverage and a record company wants to sign them, it's a lot easier to tell them that you do not want them to share in any other income streams except records.
I agree with you, Dina. It feels like it's like a seller's market right now. Like you have much more choices in types of deals and who your partner is going to be. I've had more artists this year walk away from deals that normally a year or two ago would have been like, wow. And they just don't see it because they're making so much money on their own, and they look at the numbers and it doesn't make sense to them why they would do the deal if they can just pocket, put $1 in, get $1 out. Like they don't get it. It's hard for them to understand what the value is if they are doing it themselves.
Yeah, and by the way, also getting paid on a net profit split is so much better than getting paid on a royalty participation. I mean, record companies, why they make so much money is not because of what's selling and that they get their profits. How they make money is they normally try to pay an artist a royalty. And the way they recoup that is on a prospective basis. So if they're giving you, say, 15% royalty and you're paying your producers like 5%, what your net is actually 10%. And the way the record companies recoup their costs is that, like, for every dollar that comes in, 10% goes to paying them back, and then 90 cents is their pure profit. So by the time you've recouped all their costs, they've made millions and millions of dollars. So we're now getting away from these models where you get this crazy, terrible royalty paid on a prospective basis. And we try to structure the deals more of a net profit split, which is so much better because as the dollar comes in, their costs get reimbursed. They take some kind of marketing fee or distribution fee, and then there's a profit split rather than them recoup all these costs from this little piece.
But they play games there too, of course, even in the profit splitting. For example, foreign streaming, which is a really important source of earnings right now, generally the major labels are allowing their foreign affiliates to take a very big, like sometimes more than 50% share of the earnings in the local territory, and then they're sending whatever pennies are left, 30 cents on the dollar or whatever, to the United States, where if you're on a profit split, okay, so now you get 15 cents. But the company made the others, whatever that is, 85 cents. between their foreign affiliate and the U.S. company is 50%. So all of this it's like, you know, gambling. When you're betting against the house, the record company's the house. They win with every gamble. Unless you've got somebody really smart like Dina or Marjorie to negotiate your contract for you.
But she's right, because they take these foreign fees, which used to happen in the 70s and 80s when record companies literally, in America, were not global. They had to do sub-distribution agreements with all these different labels and all over the world to be able to distribute the artist's records all over the world. But we don't need that anymore. It's one click of a button, and your music is on 47 digital service providers all over the world. There are no foreign distribution fees. There's no sub-distribution fees. So the fact that, say, Universal still takes this fee, not to call anybody out, but Universal still takes this fee is really pretty disgusting.
And by the way, the only way to find that they did that is to audit. It's not going to be in your record statements. It's not going to be obvious. So you have to have earned enough money to justify the cost of an audit, which isn't inexpensive. It's minimum $20,000 to audit a record company. And your auditor will show you that the record company played this game with a foreign pocket where they shoved a bunch of money. And then you have to get into a long negotiation. So now you need a lawyer who you got to pay to negotiate and settle this audit claim, all of which boils down to they're going to steal from you unless you catch them. And the only way to catch them is to pay expensive advisors to do it. Unless you have, unless you have a really brilliant lawyer at the very, very beginning and the leverage to get a provision that's more favorable. But it's difficult. I mean, I've got superstars that still have to fight over these types of provisions in their contracts.
Thank you all so much for that. I was wondering if you all could share a little bit about your experience as a woman in law in the music industry.
I'll share because I you know, my experience was, it started because I was an artist myself when I was a lot younger, and I signed my first contract when I was 16. And my parents were both immigrants from Guatemala and Mexico, and they, you know, had third grade education and couldn't read it in English, and it was like, sign here or it's going to go away in a matter of like one night, and it was really confusing and scary, and I just felt like I kind of carried that with me as I was going through school, and I knew that I didn't want to be an artist. I didn't have that in me anymore, and I wanted to be somewhere in the business side, but I didn't want to necessarily be at the label either. So decided to be a lawyer, went to law school, found it to be very challenging for a lot of reasons that weren't necessarily because of the content, but, you know, the actual workload. But it was also, I was away from my home for the first time. I was experiencing not working 3 jobs to get through college, and, you know, and it was just a different thing, and feeling like I was coming from a more difficult place, and I had to work harder, and I had to work longer nights, and also just having that feeling of imposter syndrome, like, how did I get here? Do I belong here? And then having been really lucky to have met angels in my life, one of them being Jill, who actually took me from Universal Latin after I'd been there for 7 years and opened this beautiful golden door for me that otherwise I never felt like I was able to get into. When I had walked out of law school, I was like, I know what I want to do. I know I'm smart. I know I work super hard. I know I would kill it wherever I would go, but nobody opened that door for me. And it was hard to open it. And I think part of it is because 4% of all lawyers in the US are Latino, 2% being women. And so, you know, Latinas. And so it's like, there was nobody like me that was interested in mentoring me at those firms at those moments. And that was hard, walking into spaces where people thought I was the interpreter or the secretary, and not that was, you know, that was my experience. But I was really, really fortunate that someone like Jill saw me as a person who had talent and hunger and identified me as somebody who she wanted to grow, and she took me under her wings. And it was the most challenging years of my career because she challenged me every day. And sometimes when the phone rang, I'd get so scared because it was her. But she taught me so much. I mean, I owe so much to someone like her who didn't have to do that for me. She didn't have to open that door for me. And she was my angel. And here I am with you on a panel. I'm going to cry, but I'm not going to cry.
That's really sweet.
Those all of our ages.
But
So
I've definitely had the experience of walking into a room and being asked to go get coffee. I didn't have the kind of background Marjorie did. My mother was actually an attorney. She went to law school while I was in college. But I was in an era, I started in the 80s, I was in an era where people were snorting cocaine off of desks and sexual harassment was a given. But it was the balancing act, and I know Marjorie and Dina have both had this, the balancing act of being a mom and lawyer, that I think for me was a special challenge. It was a really, really rewarding challenge, but it's so exhausting and so, I don't even know the words. I mean, I definitely felt like I was failing at both jobs a lot of the times. It's really hard to give all the attention that the job needs and still give the kids the attention they need, and vice versa. And, you know, women aren't the only ones who parent, so I don't think this is purely a women's issue, but parenting and working, I don't even think it matters if you're a lawyer, whatever you are. It's hard.
Yeah, it's really hard. You know, my path was very non-traditional. I was a musician, you know, and then I went to law school, basically because I was a personal assistant for a massive rock star. And I saw everybody always, you know, the end all be all was their lawyer, and who always shut everything down. He was this creepy white guy in suspenders and a bow tie. And he was mean, and he never came to shows. And I'm like, how is this guy who's got like this great band and is surrounded by all these great people, and he's like not even like excited about his work? Anyway, long story short, I went to law school. And when I got out of law school, I couldn't get a job. Everybody says to me, why did you start your own firm? And the bottom line is because no one wanted me. Okay, I got out of law school. I was a woman. I was gay. I was dyslexic. I just got sober, because I got sober in 1998. And I went to the wrong law school. So it's not like I had a lot of options. So I started interning for a lawyer, which means that basically I blew up his kid's basketball, got him lunch, and filed his papers. But the good thing when I was there is I met this woman named Afeni Shakur, whose son had just been murdered a year and a half before that. And she immediately saw me, you know, which has been consistent through my entire life. You know, like I've been surrounded by Black women my entire life because they can see me where other people, especially white men, cannot see me. So Afeni just grabbed onto me and, you know, literally told everybody for a couple of years that I was opening my own law firm. Like, Jill, you'll love this. David Cohen, who used to be the head of business affairs at Interscope, calls me up and he goes, Afeni told me you're opening your own law firm and I got to help you.
I remember when all that happened.
Yeah, you do. You'll remember. Yeah, because you know who I worked for, and it was really difficult because
and I know who was on the other side too.
Yeah. And I had to wait tables. I waited tables at night for almost 2 years as a lawyer, as I interned for this lawyer to learn the ropes. And that's what I did. And because I'm dyslexic, I had a hard time really getting the complex, you know, topics, like especially in copyright and publishing, which is so hard to understand. So what I did is I started teaching it. So I started teaching it at the Musicians Institute, because when I used to teach guitar lessons to kids in college, that's how I would learn my parts. So I started teaching music law. or music business at Musicians Institute. And then I went on to go to UCLA, where I was there for almost 20 years teaching. And honestly, that's how I learned everything, by teaching it.
Wow, thank you all so much for sharing all those really impressive stories. Thanks so much. I was wondering if maybe you all could maybe touch on like a new artist, if they have an option signing a 360 deal. In other words, must the artist either sign a 360 deal or go at it alone as an independent DIY artist?
I'm just going to jump in. I'm sure probably that Marjorie and Dina can answer this better, but I think that it depends. There's no one answer. It's very fact-based. Like it's possible that this given new artist might say no to signing a 360 deal, and the label might come back and sign them anyways. You don't know that until you have a few doors slammed in your face. So every situation is unique. You don't know how much leverage you have, though, until you push the envelope. If you just give up with the first offer and sign it, you undersold yourself.
I agree with that. And also, I think there's something to believing that you're worth more and acting like you're worth more, because, you know, I truly believe that the strongest power in our vocabulary is no. And when you say no, you give yourself a whole lot of power. I think a lot of the artists, especially the developing artists that I'm working with, are measuring success differently too. I think that it doesn't have to be a worldwide hit for them to feel successful and to be successful. I think a lot of artists deem success as, you know, I make money doing what I love, and I have, you know, I can do tours every single year, and I can feed my family, and that is success in their eyes. And so if you want, you know, and you can do that in the independent way. However, if your hopes are that you want to do this on a worldwide basis, there is still some value in having that machine push those sort of levers internationally, and not have you be responsible for creating teams in different territories of the world. But it's possible, and it's definitely possible nowadays, where technology, like Dina said, it's a push of a button. You can have your music up everywhere, and we've seen it with viral, I mean, hits. I represent an artist called Obsesión, and they had this massive hit called Mi Troquita Cumbia, and it's a song that is a viral hit. What, you know, it's like number, I don't know what it is right now, but it was, I think the last time I checked, it was like 23 on this viral hit. No other tracks on this list are, you know, on the Spotify list, are a Spanish track and a regional Mexican track. I mean, this is the world we live in right now, where you can be excited about a track that maybe you would not have been exposed to had it not been for some TikTok video that you just fell in love with and started sharing with everyone. So it's a good time to be an artist because of that, because you have a lot more power to say no nowadays than you did even 5 or 3 years ago.
And don't sell your rights if you can help it, no matter what. Even if you're going to sign these contracts, if it's possible for you to enter into a limited license or, you know, a limited publishing, like income participation, but the more you hold on to the extent you someday make it, you're going to make geometrically more than you think if you can hold your rights. That's the main thing, and that's something I've been saying since day one in the practice. It's never changed. Try not to sell your rights.
True, because that's how you earn over time, like keeping your rights. And even if you want to be, if you have to sign a deal, try to keep as many rights as you can. Your publishing rights, so you could do deals with publishers yourself, your merch rights. When you have to give your rights to somebody, everything, that's the problem. And to get them back is very expensive, and it's a prolonged basis. So very predominant in rap and urban music is these production companies that sign artists to them, and they take all the rights, like all the active rights. They control your publishing, they control your merchandising, they control your sponsorships and endorsements. And it's been a problem since Suge Knight and Death Row. I mean, it's just a thing. And it's been since I've been practicing law.
Even before that, Dina, I mean, honestly, even before that, like NSYNC originally were signed to Transamerica, and they had everything. They had the albums, they had the publishing, they had the touring corporation. The promoters own the touring corporation. So it's, you know, it's old. Oh, we have a guest speaker.
Sorry.
So cute.
Yeah, just like this is what when you're a lawyer and you're
Exactly.
yeah.
Oh my God. This is what mom hashtag mom lawyer life is.
Yeah.
But in what Dina and Jill were saying too is I think there's also a lot of power in building it yourself. Like I have another client, Snow the Product, who has her own merch company, and it's very, very successful for her. She manufactures coffee cups, shirts, jewelry, you know, everything. She does it herself, and she's taught herself how to do it, to cut out the manufacturer, the distributor. She does it all direct to consumer. And can you imagine a label coming to her now and being like, well, I'm going to take 20% of your merch? She'll kick them. Like it's not going to happen because I control it. I know the value. I know what it costs. You're not going to tell me that's going to cost you this much and you're going to charge me this. It's just, there's power in building it yourself and holding it and controlling it, owning it.
Thank you all so much. So we're approaching on about 10 minutes, so I'm going to just jump right into the Q&A. I believe first we have Natalie.
Hi, everyone. Just to make sure, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. First off, thanks so much for doing this. Marjorie, Dina, Jill, truly, you know, listening to all of you has been so inspiring, and hearing that I'm a first generation law student. I'm Latina. I'm also a first generation American. So just hearing all of your stories, seeing Marjorie, you especially, I just feel so happy, and knowing that, you know, being a third year law student, I'm so close to my goal and I can really see myself doing it.
Yeah.
But one of my questions is just, how 360 deals have become, they've truly been expanding in the last few years. And in light of the recent JLM lawsuit, which was a trademark suit, where they bought out a brand where the designer of the owner of the brand used her real name for the trademark, how would you advise musicians and up-and-coming artists who are using their real names, or, you know, using all their social media under the name of their band? In case, you know, is there a fear that a publishing company or another company would try gaining control of the social media accounts with a 360 deal?
Well, you got to fight against that. So in every record deal, they try to get control of your website. They try to say that they want to, you just got to cross that shit out and say no. No is a complete sentence. I learned that in Al-Anon.
Yeah, there's
But it means reading the contract. You got to read the contract, because yes, this website language, the social media language, all that, it's buried somewhere really hard to find.
Yeah, it's buried under website when they say websites that use your name. That's it. That can include your social media, and you got to start carving everything out, and you got to get it back after you're done with the contract. I mean, there's so much value in your name, and it's so much, and I think trademark is an afterthought of a lot of people. They don't think about it. And part of it is because there's this immense cost that's associated with it. So you've got to be a good business person about your money that's coming in. Are you reinvesting in your brand? Are you spending the money not buying something that you don't need, and instead putting it in to register your mark for the, you know, sound recordings, live entertainment, merch? Those should be immediate. You should do those immediately. I hope that answers your question, Natalie, and keep going. We need more of you.
It does. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Natalie. I believe next we now have Kelly.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for taking time to be on this panel today. I feel really inspired, and it's kind of been a new goal for me to consider law school and, go into publishing and music law. I think from a young age, being so interested in like music documentaries and just seeing how so many amazing artists get, for lack of a better word, screwed over by their contracts. That's something that I feel really passionate about, trying to kind of make right and see innovation in that. So now that artists kind of have more leverage with things like TikTok and, different definitions of success, do you think there's going to be new types of deals from the labels? Also, are there any innovative deals that you've seen so far kind of come from that?
The labels are always going to be grabby.
Yes.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen. They're going to be grabby in new and creative ways.
Try to get these rights. Like now they're trying to get all the rights for non-fungible tokens, which are
exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking about.
Yeah,
that's like, crazy.
Hey, no one invited you to the parties. Shut up. It's crazy.
I will say one of the things that I saw that was kind of interesting in a label deal. It didn't end up happening, but it was something that I saw that was being offered by one of the majors was, even though it was a recoupable fund, it was a fund that was earmarked for mental wellness. And I thought that was really cool because I think a lot of people don't talk about health and mental wellness of artists. And it was something that was meant to be spent on therapy, exercise, like whatever it is that makes you feel better as an artist. And there's just so much ups and downs of being an artist. When you're high, and when you're low, you're really low. So that was interesting. So I will credit that label for doing that. And also I think the labels that are understanding that you can't come to a new artist who has had success doing it independently and say, I want 6 albums, it just doesn't work. And I think the ones that are taking a more stepped approach to signing an artist to a major label deal by saying, okay, we're going to do a single. And if we have some level of success here, then we're going to do an EP. And if we have some level of success here, we're going to do, because if you throw them into that system, sometimes it's very difficult to accept that you now have all these other cooks in the kitchen. It's hard for the artist to have that many opinions about their music. They feel emotionally strong about that. And so I think the ones that the labels that are taking a slower approach with artists are going to be more successful right now if they do that, but they won't. Not all of them.
What I haven't seen yet, and maybe Marjorie or Dina, you've seen it, is a creative approach to the non-album format fulfillment. Because historically, the way that you fulfill, there's what's called a recording commitment in a record contract, where you promise that you're going to deliver, like we're talking about 5, 6, 7 albums. That's what it used to be. These days, I don't even think most bands are thinking in terms of album, like a full album anymore. I mean, people are making songs and the songs are getting streamed, and who cares about album art? None of that. It's all kind of old school. And yeah. I have not seen a record company come up with a good way other than just counting tracks and counting it as an album, even though there is no album. Maybe I'm missing something.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly it. They use the number of singles to say it's the album.
Yeah.
Which really is crazy. They need to just get away from album thinking. It's an old school thinking.
It's like the MDRC clause in publishing deals. Now they're doing away with it. It would be great to get away with the commitment, because remember, I mean, if they're truly signing a record deal, the biggest element is exclusivity. Whatever you do anyway, they're going to control. So to have these delivery requirements is really antiquated. I agree, Jill.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kelly. So with that, I'm just going to wrap it up with one final question. I was wondering if you could each go around and just share what are the most prominent things you have done to help advance your career in the music industry.
I know for me, what I do is I just help people. Unlike, doing my practice is my practice and I own it. And obviously I have my clients, but what's really, really helped me is getting involved in all the free stuff I do. I started delivering food at the food bank. That's how I started. But then I got into the policy stuff, like, fighting for songwriters' rights and helping with, suing the Department of Justice when they were trying to advocate for bad laws, even worse for BMI and ASCAP. Getting involved in the Music Modernization Act, getting involved now with the CARES Act, and getting, sole proprietors and independent contractors paid for, getting them health insurance, pandemic unemployment insurance. That's been good for me, like doing stuff outside of, because I couldn't compete. I had my own firm and no one wanted me. And it's like, well, okay. So Fanny told me 3 things. You could either give up, give in, or give it all you got.
I'm going to say like the old Jewish grandma advice. The thing to do is get good grades, go to a good school, work really hard, have a good work ethic, follow through, don't drop the ball, and value yourself. I mean, make sure that you're proud of yourself every night when you go to bed, that you did the best you could that day.
I love that. I think mine is the same. I think what's gotten me through and what's helped advance my career is I've just been true to myself. I work really, really hard. Hence why my favorite word now is I'm tired. My favorite phrase is I'm tired. How I respond to everyone, how are you? I'm tired. I'm honest with people. And my business is built on recommendations because I try to be a good person. I try to be honest with people. I try to not bullshit them and treat them with all the respect that they deserve. And more important to me these days has been to show up for things like this. So thank you again for your invitation and for having this organization, because it just was not present when I started my career. And I think for everyone else that's coming up, that's the next Dina and Jill and myself, we need you. We want you, we want you to be there. We want this not to be a thing of, a curious thing to have 3 successful women in law. We want it to be the norm. So we invite you. I don't know about you two, but I answer every email I get from somebody saying, do you want to have lunch? Do you want 10 minutes of my time, 15 minutes? Because I'll give it to you, because nobody gave it to me. So I'll give it to you. If you ever just need some advice, you can reach out.
Thank you all so much for coming, especially to a lot of our new audience members. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of your questions, but I definitely encourage you to reach out to all these panelists on LinkedIn. I'm sure they'll be happy to answer some of your questions. But with that, thank you all again. You can follow Colored Music Collective at Colored Music Collective on all social media platforms. And I definitely encourage you to follow our newsletter to find out the details about our next panel. But with that, have a great rest of your evening. And thank you all so much again, and happy International Women's Month.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.